Hello, you are listening to the Gamer Librarian Podcast, the best podcast you can find on this side of the multiverse. I'm your host Adrian, and today I will be talking about my final thoughts on Dragon Age the Veilgaurd, voting, and more. Afterwards, be sure to subscribe to be notified when future episodes are released, and show your support by liking and leaving a comment. Thank you for joining. Alright, here we are. Friday, November 8th, 2024, and I'm sure all of you, if you live in the United States just like me, or if you're in other parts of the world and you've been watching the news, election came out with its results, and this is the first election that I voted in, and more importantly, to be honest, it's the first election that I'll be talking about on the podcast, and I don't really want to go into all these kind of specifics, but the next 4 years here are going to be very, very, worrisome or very hard for some people here in the country. So, just hoping that you all stay together and, get through it to the best of your ability. And that's all I could really say. It's a very scary time, but you know, I'm here with you. So we could definitely talk about things as they unfold and see where they go. When I started the podcast, I didn't necessarily think about the election coming up or anything, but I don't know if I would ignore it. I think it's pretty important, especially if things take a drastic turn or certain things with I kind of want to read The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I tried to read the first book a few years ago through school, but now I really want to finish the series. So I think that's going to be pretty um, topical or relevant, and there's a lot of things going on. And I just want to, at least be a part of it to a degree, other than just talking about it, all that. But I'm definitely interested in what the next 4 years are going to be. You can guarantee that we'll, of course, still be covering all the main stuff, the things I really want to talk about, the focal points, books and video games. So, what I've been reading now, I do plan in the future of the month to pick some book related to Native American heritage and read it within a week and just talk about it, see what I can learn and all that. I think it's going to be really fun and interesting. I don't not necessarily caught up on any kind of recent Native American history or anything like that, but I think it's going to be really fun. I might have mentioned it last episode, but I got a few books that I'm going to decide on definitively what I'm going to read. But, this week I was pretty surprised to see a few articles mentioning the new DC run of their superheroes for Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, their Absolute series. Now, I'm not super caught up on any kind of recent DC or even comic kind of stuff. I'm just not really like following all that. I opened it and I was surprised to see that their article mentioned Batman being, portrayed as a blue collar Batman. And that was enough to intrigue me, being like, oh, so he's not a billionaire, but he's still Batman and he still does like the same kind of stuff. That seems pretty normal and stuff. Like blue collar seems very like specific, like what does he do? And from what I can gauge from the comic, I'm pretty sure he's like a construction worker or something like that. Like he helped build the city as he does his crime and stuff, and it's pretty cool so far. I think it's only 5 issues coming out. It's only the first one out so far. It came out like October, so maybe the next one's gonna come out sometime soon. But then the pretty cool thing about it is that this version of Batman cuts off hands. Loving that. He's got some pretty cool weapons too. I won't say much more, but that got me intrigued enough just to read the Superman Absolute comic as well. And this one is more based around maybe potentially the same thing to a regard. And it all seems very centered around class war stuff. This one is more like a science above labor kind of caste system with Krypton, and I believe there's only a Wonder Woman comic out for it, but these two are pretty good so far, from what I could tell. And they tease, I guess the overall villains. Obviously, I think you can tell who they are, um, but like at the end, and that seems pretty cool. So definitely interested in this version of Superman and Batman, and I'll definitely give out the Wonder Woman a try too at some point, probably once issue 2 with everything else comes out this month. But I'm excited. I think it's gonna be really fun. And so. I've also been reading, the manga stuff, all that. One Piece is on a hiatus, I believe, so I don't know, remember if there's a one out this week, but I've been reading Zat's Bell. if anybody remembers the old cartoon from Cartoon Network that came out a while ago. Now, from what I know, right, I didn't look this up yet, at least on the wiki or stuff. I haven't just done it, but from what I know, certain shows are very different compared to where they adapted from Japan into America. And so when I started to read the manga, it's opens up with his name is Gash in terms of the manga, right? In terms of like whatever version I'm reading, but his name is Gash, and he comes in flying and naked, crashing into the main character's window. And right then, I don't remember how it started in the anime, but I don't remember it being like that, just a naked character, right? Like Dragon Ball opens up to that to a degree, like remember. So I'm not really surprised that that's an anime, but it was just for the first few pages, it was just wow, okay. It wasn't like the first like two, but like definitely with the first like 10 or so. And this is by Makoto Raiku. I believe that he's still going on with manga, right? Zatspell has a part two. That's what initially got me to start reading this, so I'm pretty excited. Now, we're only on chapter 40, the country of gentlemen, and during this, Zatspell is like a contest, right? Like all the they're demon children in the manga. I think in the anime, the potatoes like puppets, right? And so they're demon children, and in this like tournament, there's only about 70 of them left now, where we're at in the manga. Um, Now, I don't remember the anime at all, so I'm completely just coming in fully blind into this entire thing. To that same degree, I'm getting like some flashes of familiar things that's from the anime. Most notably, certain characters. Like none of it really seemed necessarily familiar between um, the start of it and until Parco Fogo comes up and his little dude Kanchomi or something. And those two guys are so funny. And now I know that they're reoccurring. I remember that. I definitely remember their first fight. So I was like, wait a minute. I know they lose, but they definitely come back. So he doesn't kill them. So it's definitely been fun getting to experience that spell again. And I'm definitely excited to see where it ends because I don't really know how different it's going to be in terms of the anime. I'm certain the anime didn't do the whole thing in the English version, as far as I could tell. I also started Hunter x Hunter because I know it started up again. It's getting new chapters. I don't know for how long or anything, but it's written by Yoshihiro Togashi. Now, I'm having a really fun time with it. I don't remember what I stopped at in the anime, but not a whole good deal of it's super familiar this time around. So we're only on chapter 33, and this is the final test begins, and they're still doing like the hunter exam right now. Yeah, these two mangas, I was definitely excited to see where they were going in terms of their ending. Now that I heard that they're going on again. I figured Zatspell was just like, pretty short, but like apparently the first part is like 400 chapters, and then Hunter x Hunter is already 400 chapters as well, I believe. So it's a long way going. So I'm gonna have a lot to read coming up soon, and I've also been reading Wild Strawberry. This is by Irie Unimoto, and this is chapter 34 that came out, Persisting. And no really cool revelation yet or anything, but the big fight came and done for right now, and a new power was revealed. Memory powers. We'll just leave it at that to a degree, but I'm loving it. So yeah, these three anime are pretty cool. So I don't know when the animes are gonna ever, begin or start up again, stuff like that. But definitely reading the manga has been really fun so far. And I've read a whole bunch of manga in the last few months, right? So like to me, this kind of feels like the year of manga to me, just because of how much manga I've just blasted through. We did Dragon Ball, we did JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. We did Fire Force. We did a lot of mangas, and it's just pretty exciting right now. So I'm looking forward to where we're gonna end up in the future. It's pretty exciting. So I saw a clip online that was pretty cool, and I was like, I don't know what anime this is, but I'm just gonna look it up. And I didn't have to because there was like a little tag thing that said what it was from, and it's from Castlevania. And this was like some bug monster giving a monologue, in a like surrounded by other bug monsters to some person, and that looked so berserk the whole time. I'm gonna watch it now. I will eventually watch the Netflix Castlevania in full. I only got up to like maybe part episode 3 or 4 of part two, season two, and I don't really remember anything else about that. So I'm definitely looking forward to getting back to that show after seeing that scene, and maybe we'll go and play some of the games. I've never played much of the Castlevania games, really. I know that the Vampire game got like Castlevania DLC. I downloaded the game just for that, but the DLC is like the $3 or something. I was like, I don't really want to pay for it. But maybe in the future I will. But the Castlevania games I never experienced outside of trying Symphony of the Night on like a Game Boy ROM, right? I've just never really played those specific Metroidvania, Castlevania games. I'm more of a Metroid person, so I'm looking forward to maybe doing the Castlevania show and then just maybe fully completing one of the games. So maybe to give that a shot. I think Castlevania would be really fun and cool to do that. I do think it's time to talk about our sponsor, W. W is a clean energy drink that is made to keep you focused with fast jitters or eggs like other energy drinks. We also have no mountain depths and fillers and don't use artificial dyes. W contains vitamins, amino acids, ibuprofen, and 150 milligrams of caffeine. If you use the coupon code down below, you can get 10% off of your order. Yeah, we can get on the topic of video games. Now I think we all know that I've been playing a certain game for a while, but before we get on to like full thoughts on that, there's a lot of things about video games that I want to talk about that, came through this week. Um, Other than a new Dragon Age game, right? So I also started Persona 3. Persona 3, the Aegis DLC. I've started that. Now I don't know if I really want to go through all 100 floors of this DLC. I'm really dying to play Metaphor Refantasio. That game seems pretty cool, and I'm just really into the RPG like kick right now, and I'm like dying for that. Now I still need to finish Wukong Chapter 6, right? So I'm going to do that. So eventually I'll probably do that over the weekend just to blast that through before doing Metaphor. But Metaphor is downloaded, that is for sure. I know Monster Hunter is having like a beta right now, but I'm probably gonna maybe play World sometime before the new game comes out, right? Wilds, just because I never really experienced the end kind of stuff of World, and World still seems really fun to me. Now, Wilds also seems really great, but I definitely not going to get Wilds until I beat World, just because I'd rather get that done first and eventually. Black Ops 6 Zombies has also come out, and I've only necessarily saw good things, so it looks pretty interesting. I'm excited for the return of classic zombies. That's going to be really fun. The Empire of Ants game also came out like earlier this week, and that seems pretty cool. Probably not gonna get that until like maybe it'll be on sale like Black Friday. I feel like that game's probably gonna be on sale, so we're probably gonna get that at some point. But and then for December, I'm gonna try and do all of Final Fantasy 14. Uh, Finally finish the post what's it Endwalker stuff, and then start Dawn Trail properly and see what's gonna happen right there. I think it's gonna be really fun. Now, apparently, they confirmed that the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be back compatible with other Switch games, which is great, in terms of like the physical ones. I think that's even better, right? If it's going to be having the physical disc slot or like the cartridge that they have or whatever. Now, that's going to be really cool. But I'm more looking forward to just what kind of games they're going to be having on the Switch, obviously, just because like the Switch right now just kind of feels like it's been pretty done. I know a lot of like smaller titles have come out, right? The new Zelda game, and they've been remaking all kinds of Mario RPGs, and some of them are doing pretty well, some of them aren't. And then I'm waiting on Metroid Prime 4, but maybe that's going to be a Switch 2 kind of launch title potentially. So maybe we'll see what's going to happen for that. And the PS5 Pro came out. Now apparently that's a $700 purchase that some people got, which is pretty cool. Good for them. I wouldn't really know if I would get that at this point, considering its price range and some of the games catalog on it. I mean, like Spider-Man 2 is really all I can really say. Like sometimes if you own a PS4, like you already pretty much have half of the catalog that they even have. I'm just like pretty underwhelmed by the amount of legitimate like hot titles on the PS5 Pro, just considering, everything else that's out there. All kinds of like stuff on PC and even like many other games. It just feels like compared to like the PS2, right? And I know they're not all Sony games, right? But just considering the amount of specific games that were only on that console, it was just a lot. And that definitely now it's just not the different, it's not the same thing, It's a different time. No, I play my PS5 like a lot. I like buy almost every game on the PS5, so like I know a lot of people like that. That might be a pretty good place right there for some people. But like I'm just thinking about the first party stuff, right? Because I have a PC that plays games. I have an Xbox. I have a Switch. So like I can it's pretty much everything, right? So I know a lot of people are just like a one and done. So like you want to maximize your value. So I'm hoping you guys get your maximum value out of that, at least in terms of all the titles and games you can play. I'm not really considering like the Netflix like app stuff that you could use or anything like that. And just before we get into the Dragon Age topic, right? Take Two is going through some stuff because like I saw three articles in one day where it was like the CEO was talking about how the movie could have gone better and apparently did pretty well in terms of helping game sales be boosted, which I think is pretty trash, especially considering that they have now um, laid off two of their companies, right? Two of their studios. So the links will obviously be down in below, but this is pretty bad. I feel like the Borderlands movie probably flopped way harder than they even wanted it to, which is concerning. And had a tumultuous development or production, right, from another article. So that's pretty standard for some video game movies. They've always been in development hell, just like their standard games. And it just makes me upset that they're like also trying to expressly lean into the Borderlands 4 coming out and being well, and it just doesn't seem like Borderlands is going to be a franchise that's going to be around anymore. That's pretty upsetting. I do think it's time that we get into Veilgaurd, just final thoughts. And I've definitely tried to just not do reviews, like give hard scores, definitive scores on like scales, because I don't really like that kind of engagement for video games. I think a lot of things about video games make them good. I think a lot about video games make them bad, and I think a combination of both is really where sometimes it's very hard to gauge where they fall, especially when it comes to how they're developed, how long they're developed, who worked on them, and to an even different degree, like of the overall scope of how long that franchise, if it could become a franchise, uh, like allows it to be that way. It's just so sad to me to see one of the pinnacle RPGs of all time fumble so hard, completely fumble. Now, I would put this game on the lowest tier in terms of the four games. I'd put it on like the lowest tier in terms of Dragon Age and Mass Effect games, and then the Star Wars Old Republic games. Like that's what I would do. This game kind of loses that overall world changing scope of your decisions and your choices in the game. Like that's lost and that's gone in Veilguard, in my opinion. Like it's just not there. You don't change the scope of the world in any aspect, and it's even worsened. It's butchered by the fact that your choices from the three games in the past don't have any necessary relevance to it. Now, I haven't looked anything online. I'm not really going to do that. I just don't like how it's done in the game on its own already. And I feel like it's a disservice to like BioWare itself, the pedigree that they already had. Like you fumbled so hard with what like Andromeda was bad for a lot of reasons, but I don't think fundamentally it was a badly designed game. I liked the um open worldness of it. It might be different for some people, but I think the overall aspect of it was still pretty fun. And like you still drove around with the cars or whatever, and then you had the jetpacks and the combat. So for Mass Effect, I think they fumbled a lot of ways in terms of losing their half their alien roster. They didn't have many aliens or like as many companions, stuff like that. Veilgaurd, same thing. It doesn't have as many companions. In Mass Effect 2, the total amount of companions is like 12, right? With including DLC. And this game is not going to have DLC, but the total amount is like 7. It's pretty awful. Um, uh, and these characters aren't bad. I would actually say that these characters are probably the absolute shining beacon of the whole entire game. Your time with those characters is spent pretty well. You do a lot with them, especially in terms of them being implemented in the story. I like that. I don't think the story is actually overall that terrible. I just dislike the way that your character, this main character Rook, like where did this person come from? Like we don't even know how he knows Varric in terms of that way. It's literally just picked up off the street. And to be a bigger gripe, your background barely even matters in terms of the story outside of dialogue choices. Like I'm gonna get into a big spoiler. I'm gonna get into a big spoiler because I want to. I was a Morn watcher or whatever, right? I was the Morn watch and the people like the necromancers with Emmerich. I was a Kanari Morn watcher, and when you get to the end of his story quest, you're presented with an option of helping Emmerich become like an immortal. That's as much as I'll say. You help him become immortal. And in the way it is, it's kind of a part of the Morn Watch. And your character is a Morn Watch. I didn't get presented that option. That wasn't on my playthrough. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I'm not gonna look at it. I'm not gonna look it up. I am disappointed that it wasn't even part of like the experience. It wasn't even there. I am so upset. So that's just one little gripe that I have with the game. I don't think that's a very like I think of when I was playing Mass Effect for the first time, got to 3, finished it, and that seemed like, in my opinion, a cohesive ending. That's a good ending. This is a trilogy. It doesn't need to go on forever. We don't need these stories to be going on forever. Like Mass Effect 5 does not need to be in development or announced that you've been working on it while already working on Veilgaurd. Like this game should not have been the way it was. So when I think back of when I would beat Mass Effect 3 for the first time. And to the same degree, when I beat Inquisition for the first time, I thought, holy shit, I pretty much changed the entire scope of this world. Like it's done, right? It's a fictional world, but it's done. And that experience of playing Dragon Age Origins and having your choices matter to some degree up to Inquisition and Mass Effect up to some degree in 3 was really awesome. And that is something in video games we don't get anymore. We don't get that experience and it's dead. It's dead because BioWare they fumbled and dropped the ball with that. It's because like now I don't want to play whatever comes out because I know that whatever choices I specifically try to make in terms of that world is not there, and then it's just kind of a blank slate. Now, like I get it, it's kind of hard to incorporate all those choices, bro. We're talking about these companies that we give 70 plus dollars for per copy. I feel like for a 10-year span, when you did already have the foundation for it on the Dragon Age Keep website, right? You already had the foundation for it and you didn't do it. It's not a great game. Like if I'm considering from BioWare, their history, what they've already done with the franchise itself, just Dragon Age, this feels like it's a fucking flop. And I don't want to play it anymore. I finished it about like 50 hours flat. Um, I do think the overall experience is fun. I do think that when you make your character and by the time you obviously meet with Solus and you get into the nitty gritty, that's a decent baked game. It feels like this is like the Assassin's Creed Origins of Dragon Age games. Like it's a completely different chains, a completely different mock-up, and sometimes it's not for everybody. When I played Dragon Age, not Dragon Age, Assassin's Creed Origins for the first time, the RPGness definitely was a throw for the loop and how open and expansive it was. But eventually, I played it again a few years later, and I enjoyed it, but it definitely did not feel like the same Assassin's Creed kind of game that I was necessarily used to. Not to say that like those games are bad, but they definitely lost their identity to the same degree that I think BioWare lost their identity, right? You know, you tout that your franchise is pretty historically accurate and you kind of fumble the ball with that and that people don't like you. So, you know, if you like the Dragon Age experience of like your choices mattering from game to game, and that necessarily is like a big caveat to you. Uh, you know, don't buy it or buy it. It's just up to you. I definitely didn't like it. That's really just all I gotta say. It was definitely a big disappointment to really just not be represented in terms of that kind of way. And like I put many hours into the game specifically just because of those choices, just to experience them. Like, you know, yes, we live in the culture where like you can just watch all the cutscenes and stuff on YouTube, but like I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. That's kind of annoying to me. I would rather like just play it again and experience it, you know, on my initial time. When I was younger, I could do that all the time. Now I can't, right? But it's just kind of disappointing. It's disappointing to see video games regressing to the point where core mechanics that were fundamental to like your style, the way you made your game. Yeah, the game is different in a way, but you lost the identity. It's gone. You know, God of War, the new one is an example. You know, it's not a hack and slash beat 'em up anymore in that same kind of way, but you still kind of take down hordes of enemies to a degree, giant enemies, and it's just a different focused action. Dragon Age Veilgaurd still has that. But what I will say, even worse, is the uh the nerfing of the skill trees. Holy shit. The mage class sucks. It's the worst mage class of the entire game, the entire franchise. Like it's just you barely have any of the skills that you had in the previous games. And like there's no shape shifting, there's no blood magic. Like there wasn't an Inquisition necessarily, but like it's just like I don't like that they're not having things that were previously in games. Like fundamentally just part of them. I'd rather games take what was already great and established in terms of the previous ones and then bring it over and expand it. Don't just cut it out. Yeah, it's just these video games are getting disappointing.